Hey, Cory.
Hey, Camille.
What you been doing?
Try not to talk.
Got like a scowly daddy face going. What's going on?
I got my cranky face. Well, first of all, we can't talk about the weather, right? That's the rule.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It is beautiful outside, but don't talk about it.
I will just say this, and I'm not talking about the weather. I'm talking about me. Go figure. I did chores in shorts and mucks and a t-shirt today.
Smart.
Anyway, is it? But when you're maybe having, I don't know. Stay covered. If you're a rancher, you're supposed to actually stay covered. But 112 she's nasty. And we think over I got to reframe with her.
Yeah, that's a harsh word for a cow.
She's nasty. She's mean. And she's crazy too. She's the one that you don't want to turn your back on ever. But, we think over the holidays a few months ago that she may have kicked one of our other cows because she is territorial about food. Well, I guess I am too. Okay, I get it. Never mind.
It's called hangry, Cory.
It's called hangry. But this morning, so I put her in her own. Well, first thing we did is we had to take 220B that had the limp and go, okay, what's going on?
We called Andrea
Charlotte. She's our cutest little cow, by the way.
She is
cute. And she's spicy too, but she's not crazy. But you have to go, okay, well, I got to get the hoof person here and get them in the hoof catch and see if there's a nail or a screw or some kind of abscess going on in the leg. And then, me, I always panic, like, let's get him here today. And then you say, Cory, can we give him a couple of days? Give her a couple of days or whatnot.
Animals are resilient.
Yeah, so we gave her a couple of days and the limp started too. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, like, I bet 112 kicked her when they were going for food. So I took 112 and I put her in her own bedroom, a.k.a. a corral, and she's been in there and she hasn't been out with the others.
She's been in timeout for a hot minute.
She's been in timeout for a hot minute. Well, this morning I noticed that she wants to get in with those other two cows so much that she has completely pushed, and good thing they're pinned, but she's completely pushed. And hats off, I've got to do a shout out to Brazen cattle panels.
Mm-hmm. We do love those.
They're made down under in Australia, but they're heavy duty in the corral system. But she had pushed those because she's trying to get into that other. So anyway, I need to reframe, which I think our amazing guest is going to talk about reframing today. I need to reframe my thinking about 112 and say, what can I do for her?
Yeah.
So that's it, Camille. Did I give you a lot there?
Well, let's just hope after this you can go back out and it probably won't be any different with her, but you'll be happier coming in and you won't have that scowl on your face. She won't change, but you will.
Yeah, there we go. And you know me, I don't yell and scream. We don't even have a whip. But this morning I looked her in the eye and I'm like, I could really yell and scream at you. And if I had a cattle prod, good thing it's not in my hand.
We're at that level. Wow.
Yeah,
okay, let's reframe. Let's get talking.
Hold on. She looked at me like, what are you going to do about it?
Oh, yeah. Okay, well.
So I'm going to calm down while you introduce our guest.
Okay, good.
I'm going to reframe.
Let's get talking to him.
Which is legit. It's a real thing.
Yes. Today we have David Woods. He is an author of 2 books, Old-Fashioned Leadership, Lessons from the Patio, and...
Love that.
Yes. And The Art of Networking Beyond the Handshake, and serves as the founder and chairman of Magellan Executive Partners. A former CEO of 3 companies with more than 4 decades of leadership experience, David brings the mind of a strategist and the heart of a mentor. Known for making complex business challenges practical and actionable, he helps leaders gain clarity and reduce stress. An engaging and impactful speaker, David delivers real-world insight that resonate with leaders at every level. Today, he focuses on connecting great leaders with Magellan's team of former CEOs, while continuing to help executives enjoy the ride of growth and build organizations that don't depend on the leader for every decision, but instead develop teams that think, lead, and grow on their own. And this 100% is accurate. Everything it says about him right there. Hey, David, welcome to Barn to Boardroom.
Well, thanks very much. I'm glad to be here.
David, yeah, thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to just jump right in, and I got to ask the first question. You mentioned to Camille and I, and to a group of people actually not too long ago, that you were voted the most shyest boy in your high school. And in your introduction, we talked about, obviously, when we introduced you, some of the great things you've done, and you're going to teach us a really impactful concept today. But I have to ask the question, being voted the most shyest boy in your high school, and now, as we mentioned in the intro, you've led companies with thousands of employees across many countries even. Somewhere along the way, you had to, and I'm going to use your word, reframe the story you were telling yourself. What was that first story you had to change? What did you have to tell yourself that I'm not the shyest person around in the world?
Well, I don't know that it had to do specifically with being shy. It probably had to do more with framing how I thought of myself. And I'd gone to work for a company called Ditch Witch when I was 23. And my mental vision was, I'm going to be the best dang employee I can possibly be. And so that was my personal quest, and I worked really hard at it. And fortunately, kind of got pulled up through the organization. I think just because hard work and maybe some creativity, I'm not sure. But anyway, when I was about 28, so I'd been there for 5 years, I had been already promoted to my first position above entry position. And I was talking to a dealer. It was a dealer in Indiana, and I remember we were walking across his front yard of his house. We were stopped there for a cocktail at the end of the day, and we're chatting. And I must have said it 2 or 3 times. I didn't know I'd said it 2 or 3 times, but I must have said, "I can't believe I got the promotion. I'm not sure I deserve it." I just kept, I guess, playing the humble card, and he finally just stopped and he says, "Look," he says, "you've said that way too many times." He goes, "You just need to accept you're pretty good and just own it." And I never really probably owned it the way he thought I should in his head, but it did make me realize, shut up, Woods, and just be the person you've been promoted to. And that worked really well. I remained humble, but I also understood if I'm put in a position, it's because I did something that when you get promoted, somebody above you saw something in you they want spread out over more people.
Mm-hmm.
And that framing helped me a lot. Like, okay, I'm doing something that they want me to ignite other people that are underneath me. And I kind of held on to that thought most of my career. You get promoted not because of you. You get promoted because you're doing something that they want to see spread out, if you will.
That's a great point, and that's I hope that a lot of us have been in that situation where we were being humble, and but it's interesting that you said shut up, Woods, and the person's like, you need to own this. You've written a couple of books, and like I said, Camille and I have mm-hmm. dove into one pretty deep, and we're getting ready to dive into the other one. And I mentioned to you before we started recording that Camille and I had spent some time with you in Las Vegas during a conference not too long ago, and then I found out, we got home on Saturday, I found out I had to turn around and go to Tennessee. And at first I'm like, and it was like a day turnaround, and I was like, oh man, I've got to go to Tennessee. I have to go to Tennessee. And Camille's like, well, what would David say? Let's reframe this a little bit. You get to go. So you get to go. And so just that little statement alone is such an impact and a changer. What's some other rules that you would say you put in place for yourself to help you reframe things?
Yeah, well, reframing it's a skill like any other skill. And I've learned for me personally, it's something that I had to learn how to do, and I do it every day, virtually all day long. If I hear anything that might be perceived as bad news or a change in plans, whatever that may be. There's an interesting stat that I read once that 10% of long-term happiness is driven, only 10% is driven by external circumstances. The other 90% is determined by your interpretation. And so you think about all the things that happen to you, and the first reaction often is, if it's sometimes, like I say, a change in plans, or something didn't happen the way you wanted it to, those are external circumstances, and how you interpret that is a key to sort of long-term happiness. And I do it personally. It's really become the culture of our company here, to reframe things. Just a silly little example. If you called me and said, hey, we're going to meet at 3:00, and at 2:55 you call and say, I'm sorry, I can't make it. Nobody in our office gets upset about that. We view it, the term everybody uses around here is, you just got the gift of time. And so we view it as a blessing, so that now we have an hour to do whatever we want, whether that's relax or dive into the next project, whatever it may be. But we just don't view it as a negative. We view it as, that wasn't meant to be for that hour, so we're going to do something else better.
Instead of that frustration and moving away from negativity. That's amazing, because I would get frustrated.
Yeah,
My
I would
first
too.
instinct is to be frustrated. Like,
well, that person's not very organized. They're
I'm
not
a
watching their calendar.
planner.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome. So when we had the chance to hear you speak in Las Vegas, and you were able to take, there's quite a few nuggets and lessons in your book. The old-fashioned leadership lessons from the patio. I think that's the exact title of it. But you let the audience pick what they wanted to hear, and the one, I can't remember if you spoke on that one or if it was the one I wanted you to pick, but nobody else wanted to hear that one. Was about have you considered shutting up, or have you considered. So in reframing, I feel like sometimes we overtalk. Like, we are trying to talk the other person or talk ourselves into something, instead of just being quiet and observing and listening and thinking about it for a minute. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so, I'm sorry, Camille, say that again. Was that a specific nugget, or just ask the question maybe?
Yeah, well, the nugget about have you considered shutting up, and I just loved that one, and I wanted to hear a little bit more about that one at the conference, and so I'm taking this time today to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember specifically what that may have been. I had 70 slides, I think, that we could have gone through, but
well, I don't think you talked about it, because it was awesome. You let the audience pick.
Yeah.
So just whatever you've got.
Was it on
communication.
Communication?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, whether it was in my speech or not,
Yeah.
that's a good consideration. Have you considered shutting up? And, I do that as a leadership skill. I also do it when I'm networking. Most of my people that sort of, I'll just put it this way, like me right away, it's usually because I don't say anything. Instead, I just ask them a lot of questions about themselves. And, 3 days later, I'll run into somebody else like, hey, so-and-so said they mentioned they really like you. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's because they talk the whole time. And, but that's by design. It wasn't that their ego made them talk that much. I just kept asking them questions because I'm sort of innately curious. And I find that that's a great way to build relationships, whether that's socially or from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
Let's kind of go along with what Camille was saying, and I'm going to actually talk about more of maybe when it's time to shut up with yourself, because you had mentioned about the 90% comes from within of the influence, good or bad, but probably mostly negative. So we'll call that lying to yourself, I guess. So how do you know the difference between reframing and maybe when you're kind of just lying to yourself? We got to be a little careful there too. What's kind of that line you draw? And then a second follow-up question to that is, reframing to me the way you just explained to David, can really help you so that you're not building stories in your head give us maybe a specific example of a time you've maybe used that, of like, is this in my head or is this really going on? So first of all, we need to shut up with ourselves and quit maybe lying to ourselves, but also to what's a specific example?
Yeah, well, the first one that comes to my mind is, I think that's natural, right? You get an idea in your head and you play it 4 or 5 times and it keeps sounding better and better. What I found, probably my most successful trait is surrounding myself with people that will call foul. And so I'm naturally a little bit entrepreneurish. And when you're a little entrepreneurish, you have some great ideas and some not so great ideas. And so I'll often, before I get too far down the road, I'll get it planned out well enough I can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, like I think this is a great idea. But before we ever put anything to action, I'm running it by the team, and it can be our CEO and our president, or it could be our operations team. It doesn't really matter. They all know and have great permission to say, hang on, you didn't think about this, you didn't think about that. So I think my first one, so I'm not, as you put it, lying to myself, is I've got to have a good sounding board. I think that's part of what I know our culture here is that. We have that same culture in my other company, Cortado Ventures. It's a VC firm. Have really smart people there. Nobody's afraid to speak up. And actually, when all of our coaches coach, that's one of the primary things is you can't lie to somebody. If they need to hear the truth, your job is to tell them the truth. So those are my first thoughts.
Well, you've my next question I was going to ask you, you just answered it, but it spawned a thought. And Camille and I with True Grit Edge, and about the curriculum that we work through and that we work with, that Camille and I have come up with. We talk a lot about the kind versus nice, and you just talked about that, and reframing is really being kind, right? Saying, hey, no, this is what we need to do, and we get to do it. We don't have to, but we need to, but we get to do it. But my question is with reframing and that kind versus nice, is how do you reframe it when people are around you? Maybe it's in your home, it's at work, it's your crew, it's your sports team. When they are stuck in that I have to mode, how can one person like yourself, David, as a leader, shift the entire room into the perspective of reframing of, no, it's an honor, we get to, we're blessed. How do you do that?
Right. Well, first of all, before I go any further, by the way, congrats on True Grit Edge. That's a really cool concept. I love how you've designed it where you can really help people grow and take care of cash flow and stuff like that. So I've learned just enough about the two of you to just say kudos to you. So I really
thank you so much.
On the reframing, I think if somebody needs to hear something, usually what I'll do is I'll get them talking, and I've learned I've got to let them. I don't mean to sound crude, but I got to let them run out of gas. So if I can tell they're upset about something or they're doing something wrong or whatever it might be, I'll just start asking them about it, and I'll let them kind of spiel for quite a while. And when they're finally done with that, by then they can tell, just by the fact that I sat and listened, whether it's 1 minute or 8 minutes, it doesn't really matter. They know I'm really listening. And then I'm usually, I'll just plug in something that makes them realize that I'm trying to get them to think. It may be a question or it may be a statement, but I'm trying to let them know I'm really trying to, I'm bringing my comments with love, and they'll usually take them that way. And when you sort of speak with a little bit of love in your heart, people will listen. So I kind of let them talk for a while, and then I'll, as contemplatively as I can, ask them a question or make a point. And then I can usually spot by their body language that they're really listening. And I'll just slowly, through questioning and a few comments, I'll get them to move from kind of where they were to maybe a new world for themselves.
Gonna kind of switch
Wow.
switch topics just a little bit, just to get a little more personal with you. We were just recently at a state competition with our daughter, and the advisor had asked all the competitors to give their rose and their thorn, and which is their good moment and their bad moment. So give me your rose and your thorn of, I don't know, just your career or the last few weeks, or what's a good day, bad day?
Yeah. Well, my thorn is we lost our youngest son about 6 years ago. So
I'm so
I
sorry.
can't get past that.
Yeah.
So that one,
That's a thorn.
there's no thorn that hurts more than that. So,
Yes.
as far as my rose, probably before and certainly after, I just treat every day as though it's a rose, and I don't get too wrapped around the axle on too many things. If I do, I mentally dive into how do I reframe this, and so again, every day is really good in my life, and I do have one pretty big thorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, David, thanks for sharing that, thorn. Now I understand you a lot more.
Yeah.
And what reframing means, because after going through that and the loss of a child, everything in your mind after that's got to be, hey, we can reframe this, right? It's just the day. It's what's going on today. So that's perspective. And
when we talk about true grit, it takes grit every day to get up and go after you've experienced something like that.
Is there ever a time that reframing doesn't work? Or is it
Well,
is it undefeated?
Yeah, when you lose a son.
Yeah.
Right.
When you lose a son, you can't reframe it. I tried, and I still can't. And
does that help you with reframing
that's-
things that are now all of a sudden, because of perspective, like, this is not a big deal?
Everything else seems pretty trivial after that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Reframing is much easier, I think. But it was a skill I've worked on for sure the last half of my career, when I began to learn what reframing was, which I sort of learned from the former owner of Ditch Witch. That was my first exposure to, like, oh, you can take something not so good and turn it into something good. So
when I think about reframing, and when we've gotten to know you, and since we've gotten to know you and understood that, hey, this is, I can already say what some of your non-negotiables are. And Camille and I will ask people, hey, what are your non-negotiables? And most people can't answer that, because you've never really thought about, well, what are my non-negotiables? Well, one of my non-negotiables is got to be positive. We can't be negative. And even when things are critical and there's tough stuff going on, you might not be fully positive, but being negative is not going to get you anywhere. And one of the things that I've really thought a lot about reframing, years ago, I had a mentor. His name's Tim Kite, and unfortunately, he passed away a little over a year ago. Well, it'll be 2 years here in May from cancer. But he started the Focus 3 group, and so I got to give credit to Focus 3 because they've continued on. But they have a term called no BCD. It's no, you can't blame, you can't complain, and you can't get defensive. And when I think about reframing, I think about no BCDing as well. Like, hey, hold on. Are we sitting in this spot refusing to reframe because it's easier to blame, complain, and defend? And it's a little tough to go, you know what? We are blessed that we get to go do X. And I have to just make this a little light as I look at Camille, because I'm the worst child in our house. I don't know if you know that, David. I'm her problem child. She has to go like, oh my gosh, I have to deal with Cory today. And it's all on me. Camille, you get to deal with Cory today.
I get to deal
with
Cory today.
But with that being said, you have to be positive, though, right? I mean, it really takes you out of a negative mindset and pulls you into that positive. And you have to say, you know what? I can't blame anybody. I can't complain about anything. I can't get defensive. I'm going to reframe. And I just wanted your thoughts on it. Really pulls you out of the negativity, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think some of this just goes back to one thing I encourage people to do is You have to understand make a list of your values. And what I mean by that, it can't be cheat, lie, steal. I mean, nobody does that, right? Or shouldn't do that. It's more about what are those, these are the things I will live by, if you will. And it's a personal thing. You don't have to share it with a bunch of people, but for me, it's really helpful. Obviously, just like everybody else, I could say, oh, my family comes first, and it does, but I always mentally I mentally think of each person in my family that, I won't do anything that will hurt them, right? And so it's more than my family's first and that kind of thing. I don't know why I think of it as deep as I can, because that really resets the way I think about things. The other thing, as an example, and a lot of this is reframing, as an example here at work, every once in a while, as an example, we don't require any contracts with anybody that we work with. I feel like contracts are nothing but something that creates stress for people. So I tell people, well, we don't do contracts. So it's either what we're doing together is either working or it's not. And if it's not, we'll stop. Well, every once in a while, and it's been very few times, probably less than 5 in 20 years, where somebody, maybe they didn't pay us or something like that. And a good example would be we stopped an engagement, and they didn't pay us, as an example, for a portion of that, right? And usually I'll call them and they'll explain, and I go, not a problem. We'll send your check back, right? And I'm sorry if they overpaid, because maybe we'd stop and we'd overpaid. I said, not a problem. We'll send the check back. And it goes into that value of do what's right, even if it hurts. And that sounds trivial, but it's in the small moments that you have to catch that. And in those small moments, if you catch them and you do the absolute right thing, not only is it the right thing to do, it really sends a signal to the whole group. Okay, he did it in that instance when it would have been very easy for us not to send the check back, as an example. And it's those little things that people extrapolate and begins to define the culture of an organization. So I'm pretty big on doing the right thing, even in the really small stuff.
You're the second company I've heard in the last week that's not working through contracts, and my job just screams like, you need a contract. But the more I'm hearing that, the more I'm thinking, if you're networking with people like you should, and you're holding your values like you should, why do we need so many contracts? Like, it's just an easy way to track things, right? Like, it's, my accounting mind screams don't, but my ethical mind says it's okay not to have a contract.
Your David Woods mind says don't.
Yeah, it says it's okay to not have it. And how you can hear people go, well, the legal department's making us do it. And it's like, you know what? Maybe it's okay. We go back to the handshake. Why can't we go back to those days?
It's reframing. Camille just mentioned that she's heard it. I don't know who she's mentioned with, but it's crazy that you say that, David, because I about fell out of my chair. I was in a meeting back in January, and this was a pretty large deal that we were negotiating on some college athletic sponsorship stuff for a group. And the person of this large company said, "Yeah, we don't do contracts. You'll get it done. We know you will. We wouldn't be sitting here with you if we didn't think you did." And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, this protects you way more than it protects us. And I'm the one that said we probably need to get the agreement drafted up and get it going and look at what those. And he said we don't do it. We're going to write down what you're going to do. We're going to write down what we're going to do, and it's not in contract. We just know. And I mean, This is a large organization.
Yeah, I'm not advocating that in every single business situation you shouldn't have a contract. There are certain businesses you probably absolutely need a contract. So I hope your listeners don't think I'm saying for everything
But
that
let's
you
change
do.
the culture a little bit out there. I think
you've touched on something that's actually really cool, and it goes right back to what we're talking about. Reframing is that, you know what? Now those people that you return that check to go, do we need one in the future? No, this is how they operate. But if you don't do those things, and that's where you might go, yeah, we better get a contract in place, right? So reframing, you kind of almost be like, we get to serve these people. We want to serve them so well that if they had a choice, they wouldn't even put us under contract because they know we'll get it done.
A good way to think about that is if you do it without a contract. I'll just say for me. I'll just speak for me. When we do it without a contract, we have a relationship. Mm-hmm. The minute we bring a contract out, it's now a transaction.
Yeah.
And I don't like transactional relationships. And so, and oftentimes, even when I'm chatting with a CEO of a company or whatever, and I can spot they kind of want to know, well, they'll usually say, well, just send me a proposal. And I also say, we don't do proposals. I say, you and I are going to sit here and we're going to walk through this thing, and I'm going to tell you how much it'll cost. And you either like it or you don't, and either is fine. Yeses and nos are both great, right? Mm-hmm. And so, because if I do a proposal, I've transactionalized the relationship again. And so I'm like, I want to tell you, we're going to look each other in the eye, and it either fits or it doesn't fit. And trust me, a lot of times it doesn't fit, and I don't get upset about that. You know, God didn't want me to go work on that one, so He made it where we didn't. And so, I just don't get upset about that. But I find that proposals and contracts just, we've been brought up in a society, I don't know when that started in business world, that you have to transactionalize everything. Mm-hmm. And it just, to me, it just sort of destroys the fun of it. If you, And by the way, when it's just a relationship, I find our whole team works a lot harder.
Yeah.
Because they know every day they have to earn that, right?
Yeah.
You know, David, you've done a lot and you've accomplished a lot, and I love the fact that you're still hungry. And Camille, and I love that you're still hungry, and you've got a long ways to go and a lot of things to teach a lot of us. With that being said, your reframing, has it changed over time though too? Are there things you're like, you know what, I don't even need to worry about reframing that? Why am I even talking to myself about reframing it? Is the first question is, has the way you reframe changed as you've matured more and more in the reframing and more in your career? And then kind of a follow-up to this, I'm just curious, and if you're like, hey, Cory, you're getting way too much in the weeds, and Camille will nod, yeah, I am. Can you kind of reframe up and reframe down? And what I'm talking about there is, do you think most people reframe down, meaning that they do make things, or reframe up, they make things bigger than what they need to be, or do they reframe down and make them smaller than they really are? And which maybe is more dangerous, or is it, no, reframing's reframing, Cory?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure I've got a perfect answer for that. Sometimes you can, people can get too wrapped around the axle on stuff, and they're, I don't know. It's sort of interesting. I think if I'm talking to somebody, I have to understand where they're living. So if I'm talking to a 23-year-old that's on an hourly wage, my reframing better be in their language, not in, I'll just say CEO language, because they're not living the way I'm living. And so I think my reframing has to change quite a bit around that. It's interesting. You kind of reminded me of one of my favorite things to do. I mentioned this a little bit ago about yes and no are both good answers. What I learned a long time ago, and you asked, has it always been there? It's always been there. I think as I've aged, I find more and more ways to reframe things. I'll just say more mental tools. Mm-hmm. As an example, years ago, we were, this is way back, but back in my days of Ditch Witch, we were growing really fast. And we needed a new building. And I went to the owner and I said, I'll just shorten the conversation. Basically said, we need a new building. And he went, no, not going to do that. And I looked at him like, are you crazy? Because we won't be able to build as much equipment. He goes, no, we're going to figure out how to build it with what we have. And so what I learned, the lesson I learned in that is creativity is what occurs on the backside of no.
Oh.
And so anytime I get a no from anybody, and by the way, just finish that story. He said no. I went to the team and said, we can't do it. We've got to figure out how to do more. And we had to sort of reinvent how we manufactured. We had to do a bunch of other stuff. But within somewhere between 3 and 5 years, we had 30% more space than we needed because we reinvented everything to where we didn't need as much space. And so that creativity came from, we were told no, right? And so anytime I hear a no anymore, I go, all right, won't it be fun figuring out what the positive is going to be on the backside of this?
That's ultimate reframing right there.
So David, I want you to say that again. So no, when you hear no, say that statement again about no and creativity, how you just said it.
Creativity is what occurs on the backside of no. So
is that yours? Did you come up with that? That's amazing.
Well, yeah, I think that one I did.
You might want to go get that. You might want to go get that trademarked right now.
No, it's been in my head. Well, it got in my head from that one instant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the title of your next book.
Anytime I hear I'll let you take that one and run with it.
No. I think seriously, I'm looking at Camille. She just
did the mind
blow action when you said that because, holy cow, I've never thought of no that way. No means no, and like no, my mom would say. She was a stickler on getting home on time, and I'd say, Mom, could I have leeway? Could I have till 12:05? Could I have a 5-minute leeway every now and then? And she's like, sure. Your curfew is now 11:55. And no, we're not. Like that's what it is. And so maybe I needed to get creative on how I got home, or maybe my event was closer to the house, so I could be longer, and I needed to think about it that way. But that is a huge nugget you've just dropped on this podcast, by the way.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. We it's another one of those around here. We don't get upset over no's.
Yeah.
We just again, you kind of, I guess it's reframing to say, won't it be fun to figure out what we're going to fill that space with?
It's completely reframing.
Yeah.
Completely reframing.
Yeah, it's not often Cory gets speechless, so this is new.
Yeah, I don't know when to shut up, and you've just rendered me quiet here for a second.
Well, when he gets excited and passionate about something, he asks a lot of questions. If you noticed the last time he threw like 4 questions at you, and usually I tell Cory, can I answer the first question before you get to the 4th question? Because he gets excited and wants to ask.
I think you need to reframe that and just feel blessed I asked you 4 questions, Camille.
That means he's excited about it. So
I do come with a lot of questions.
He does have a lot of questions, and it's good because
I get excited. I want to know. I want to learn. But David, as we wrap things up, I'm going to have one final question for you. But one thing I wanted to just tell you is thank you. Thank you for the time that you shared with us this morning. Thank you for what you've taught Camille and I over just a little bit of time we've gotten to know you, and we're excited to continue on and really this mission, which I feel like we're all on of reframing, but maybe, I don't know the best way to put the mission, but the mission is that sometimes the way of the old school way of things is really what we need in life right now. So the getting back to people, the reframing, the handshake, the no's okay. One of the things I wanted to share though is thank you so much for sharing about your son. We can't imagine what that's got to be like. But one of my questions was going to be, and I'm not going to have you answer it because you already did, and it's just crazy, was when someone has experienced real trauma, and I wrote this question down, does reframing come into that or does it not? And so thank you so much because you answered that question. And so there's a lot of people that do listen to our podcast. We know them that have had hard trauma and what is really hard things in their lives. And so thank you for sharing that. The last question we want to ask you, David. Go ahead.
Just one comment on that. So, as you pointed out earlier, that's certainly the biggest thorn. But in grief, my wife and I had to learn how to reframe grief because we'd never experienced grief like that, right?
Yeah.
And so as an example, we had to sort of come to the agreement that literally weeping is okay.
Yeah.
So we don't try to hold back, and it comes in weird moments. Anybody that's had that kind of trauma will tell you that it could be, it can be anything. And so we've learned, don't, just whatever you got, you can weep and we'll hold each other and that kind of a thing. And so we learned that weeping is really nothing more than sort of love coming out of us. And so we've had to reframe what I'll just say the symptoms of grief are, of what is that really that's going on. And I can't reframe my son's death, but I can certainly reframe so that keeps it, I hate to say positive, that's not the right word, but makes the grieving understandable, I guess.
Can you share his name just so we can think of his memory? Was that too close?
I'm sorry, his name?
Yeah.
What's your son's name?
Yeah, what's your name?
Yeah, Ian Van Woods. He was 3 days shy of his 30th birthday.
Oh.
And great. He was a cinematographer, very, very creative. He had a heart condition, unfortunately, we didn't know about. And so, there was a knock at the door. We thought it was him, and it was 2 policemen telling us that they'd found him in his apartment. So, anyway.
I was going to ask you if there's anything that you feel like we need to know about you and about reframing. I think this is probably a pretty good place to end because now we do know.
I don't know.
But,
we can probably.
We could go for hours.
Well, we could. But David, you are appreciated, and you're one of those people. I told Camille this morning that David's one of those people we've known a short time, but I feel like I've known him my whole life. And as cowboys and ranchers, we look at each other that way. I meet a rancher and I might have only known him or her for 5 minutes. And real quick, I can tell you that I feel like I've known that person my whole life. And there's certain, circles that you can feel that. And so, David, thank you for being that person. I would also tell people, and we'll do this in kind of our wrap up, but make sure you go grab your book.
Yeah.
And we're going to grab your next one. But Camille, is there anything else you wanted to ask David before we let him get back to his day?
No, I think we've covered just a variety of topics. Thank you for sharing Ian's story. Thank you for just everything that you've, like Cory said, brought to our lives in such a short time. Again, today, as we've talked with you, as we did before, we've learned a nugget. We've gotten something we can take away. And thank you and bless you for that.
And David, sprint to that attorney's office and get your and
speaking of contracts,
go get that contract, get that, because people like Camille and I might say that sounds good in some True Grit Edge curriculum. So, no, we'll always make sure you get credit. Mind blowing what you did there and said. Anything else you want to share with us before we let you go?
Well, just probably because we didn't talk about this, but I'll tell you for your listeners, if I'd encourage you to get involved with True Grit Edge. They're, as you can already tell from this podcast, they're extremely caring and have great skills, can help people with cash flow and all kinds of things, and in the construction world. And by the way, I also love the name of this podcast, Barn to Boardroom. I mean, it's just so creative. I really appreciate you guys asking me to participate today.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for your time. And David, we'll talk very, very soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Oh, all right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye.
That is amazing. And what we said at the beginning about getting your little foil, your brow, your forehead, that's what I meant to say, not foil.
112 is not a problem.
Is not a problem.
Not at all.
And because you went from scowl to mind blown within a few minutes.
I think we can share. I also went to tears there for a second too.
Yeah. So, yeah. That, wow. So many nuggets out of that. So many lessons. He's amazing. Read his books.
Love David.
It's something you could read over and over again. And I'm just glad we have a hard copy here in the house, so we'll just keep reading it.
So I will share this. Camille and I, we went to a conference for Camille's work, and hung out with a few people, right? And it was the largest construction ConX expo. It's every 2 years, 3 years, I think.
3.
I mean, it takes a month for them to load it in. They shut down streets. It was awesome. Got to see some tractors, you know. And for me, that I like heavy equipment as well. It was fun for Camille. It was good for her to learn and learn about construction cash flow. And I think I know she walked away from a few things going, wow, but we both walked away from David's session going crazy. But we had reached out to David prior to.
Was able to connect
with him while we were there. And what was cool is that he said, yeah, let's meet up. And we sat in the hallway in some chairs and we just kind of bounced some ideas off of each other for quite a while. But you say this all the time about people. What you just heard is who they really are behind the scenes. That is who he is. And so if you are he can step in and lead any organization. I've said that about a few people. He's on that list in any industry. And what you just talked about, or earlier what we talked about in his intro about, you know, what he did with Ditch Witch and how he moved up in the organization, totally can see that. But he's true to heart, right? And I think the world of him. Like I said, I feel like I've known him for a long time, even though it's only just been a short amount of time.
Yeah. Amazing. And I kept thinking, and as I kind of fumbled through that first question, I just kept thinking, talk less, say more.
By the way, we're not going to edit out that first question that you think you fumbled on. I actually think it's really, really good.
But the whole time I just kept thinking he's a guy that, I mean, he'll chat with you about anything, but he's a talk less, say more kind of guy, because what he tells you is so impactful. You don't have to get through 3 hours of fluff to get the nugget out of him. It's amazing. Every time we've talked to him, I've walked away with something, and that's the cowboy code, right? It's be impactful in what you're trying to say and do, and that's him, and that's why he's been successful.
Agreed. With that being said, Camille, I know you wrote it down. We got to hear it one more time. I am still mind blown about this. So simple, yet so complex.
So creativity is what occurs on the backside of no.
So I'm going to call our teenager and I'm going to tell her no. And I'm going to tell her I need her to be creative. How do you think that's going to go?
Yeah.
And reframe.
No,
I bet she'll do it.
It's great.
Well, Camille, what's the rest of the day look like?
It's springtime in the Rockies. I think we said that last year. It's been a year.
Yeah. It's congratulations.
Springtime in the Rockies. Excited.
It's been a year of Barn to Boardroom.
I think we said that on some of our first podcasts. So not talking about the weather, but it is beautiful outside. We've had early spring. Let's go out and enjoy it. And you know what that means.
There's going to be
a gorgeous sunset.
It's going to be a gorgeous sunset. Everybody, thanks so much. David, thank you so much. Everybody go pick up his book. Do yourself that favor. Take that time. Be selfish. Grab both his books. Sit down and read them and share them. Camille.
Have a great day.
Have a great day. We'll see you.